Welcome back to another Sleep Reads with Ben. We're diving into Chapter 9 of Star Wars Hard Contact, Book 1 of the Republic Commando series by Karen Travis. And I'd like to welcome you, whether it's day, night, or morning, or evening, whatever time of day you're tuning in. I hope it's a good one, and I hope this doesn't make it any worse. Now let us continue to Chapter 9. There's something very touching about them. They look like soldiers, they fight like soldiers, and sometimes they even talk like soldiers. They have all the finest qualities of the fighting man, but behind that is nothing. No love, no family, no happy memory that comes from truly having lived. When I see one of these men killed, I weep more for him than for any ordinary soldier who has lived a full and normal life. Jedi General Ki-Adi-Mundi. Darman had flattened Jannart's face against the wall and put his blaster to her head in the same time it took Etain to jump to her feet. "Steady there, boy," Jannart said quietly. "I mean you no harm." She had her pinned securely. The expression on his earnest face was entirely benign, so far divorced from the potential violence he was ready to mete out that Etain shuddered. "Let her go, Darman," she said. "She's a fellow Jedi." Darman stood back instantly and let Jannart go. "I'm not a Jedi, I tell you," Jannart said irritably. She looked upward into Darman's face. "So you'd shoot an old woman, would you?" "Yes, ma'am," Darman said. Etain stared, horrified. "Threats come in all guises. Not all soldiers are young males, and not all soldiers wear uniforms." Etain waited for Jannart to aim a kick at his groin, but the old woman broke into a satisfied grin. "There's a sensible boy," she said. "You'll do well. Trust this one, Etain. He's very good at his job." She peered at the blaster, still firmly in his grip. "DC-17, I see." "There are 4 of them," Etain said, expecting Jannart to react with the same disappointment she had. "I know." The woman handed Etain a bundle of rags. "A complete squad of clone commandos. Here. Dry clothing. Nothing chic, but at least it's clean, yes? I know all about them. I've been tracking the other 3. "They're okay?" Darman was all anxiety again, still emitting that same sense of child that Etain found hard to bear. "I've got to rejoin them. Where are they?" "Heading north. To RV Gamma." "Whatever you say, lad. You've all led me on something of a dance. You're all a challenge to track." "That's how they trained us, ma'am." "I know." Jannart was still staring at Darman's face. "You really are a perfect copy of Fett, aren't you? In his prime, of course." Her voice had become lower, with less of a hoarse cracking typical of the very old. And Etain wondered if this was the moment in which she would reveal that she was a Sith. The Padawan slid her hand slowly into her sodden cloak. Jannart suddenly became black as Coruscant marble, and then devoid of texture and hair and fabric and wrinkles, as if wax were poured into a crude mold. Her form began flowing. Darman's incongruously innocent face broke into something like a familiar smile. Etain was ready this time. She was focused. She visualized the lightsaber as a part of her arm. She was ready to fight. "You're the Gurlanin," Darman said. "We weren't told you were on this mission. How'd you manage that?" "I'm not Valakil," said a soothing liquid voice. "I'm his consort." Jannart, now a 4-legged, black-furred creature, sat up on her haunches and seemed to simply extend upward like a column of molten metal. "Girl, you do look surprised." Etain couldn't argue with that. Even if she had encountered the full diversity of non-human species, she certainly had, even with her own, even within her own Jedi clan, seeing a shapeshifter metamorphose before your eyes was mesmerizing. On top of that, even this naive clone soldier knew what this creature was. She didn't. You're quite the revelation, Janart. But why can I sense something about you that feels like the Force? We're telepaths, the Gurlanin said. Oh. No, I'm not delving into your mind. It doesn't work like that. We communicate only with each other. But I heard your voice that night, in my mind. I was standing near you, actually. Not in any shape you'd notice, of course. And me, ma'am? Darman asked, seeming totally absorbed by the conversation. Yes, I told you to get some sleep. I make a convincing fallen tree, don't I? Junart flowed and changed and resembled herself in the epitome of a crone again. I know. Stereotypical but effective. Old women are invisible, like you, Darman. We go where others won't, and do what others can't. The communications network here is totally controlled by the Trade Federation, and in practice that means a single relay and monitoring ground station at Teklit. And while my kind cannot transmit details over interstellar distances, we can communicate broad ideas and notions to each other. My consort and I are your comlink. Not perfect, but better than silence. The Gurlanin made a liquid sound like water boiling. I spent the last 2 days running myself ragged to gather this intelligence, and it's as much for this young man as it is for you. Gaz Hokan now has command of armed forces here, such as they are, and he's no fool. He realizes Republic troops are here for Uthan's box of tricks. Darban, he's tracking your comrades. We're pretty good at evasion, yes, but they do tend to leave bodies and parts behind them. He admits he didn't know how many of you there are, and that troubles him. You're privy to his concerns, then, Etain said. She trusted nobody now. She didn't know who betrayed Masterful Year. Until she did, would keep an open and cautious mind. Although her master hadn't told her about the clones, he must have known if he had discovered Uthan's activities. But he hadn't trusted her, for all his kind words, when it came down to it, simply confirmed, even from the grave, that she was not fit to become a Jedi Knight. I know Hokan's concerns because I make a very convincing old man as well as an excellent grandmother, Janart said. The reply made no sense. I'll catch up with Darman's comrades and try to direct them somewhere safe. They have no reliable intel, as you call it, a finite amount of ordnance, and no advantage or surprise any longer. Hokan knows what you have come to do, and he has enough firepower and droids to stop you. That makes your mission next to impossible without some change of plan or intervention. Darman considered her carefully. Janart's news hadn't dented that tangible confidence. Etain saw not a flicker on his face. It could be worse. I quite like the sound of a single transmitter. Might I also add that the locals will turn you in for one chance to get disgustingly drunk? Darman looked at Etain. She squirmed. Out of ideas, soldier? She asked. I await your orders, Commander. It was the final straw. Weeks of fear, hunger, and fatigue, on top of years of doubt and disillusion, suddenly brought Etain's fragile edifice crashing down. She had done all she could do, and there was nothing left in her to give. Stop it. Stop calling me Commander. She felt her nails dig into her palms. I'm not your blasted commander. I haven't a clue what to do next. You're on your own, Darman. You're the soldier. You come up with the plan. Junard said nothing. Etain felt her face burn. She had lost all dignity. A lifetime of careful training in the art of control and contemplation had led to nothing. Darman changed before her eyes. He transformed not into a physical sense that the Gerlanen had, but the change was just as startling because the sense of that child, Etain detected so clearly, simply evaporated. Its place was taken by a calm resignation and something else, a rather forlorn feeling. She couldn't pin it down. Yes, ma'am, he said. I'll do that right away. Janart jerked her head in the direction of the door. Get some air, Darman. I need to talk to Commander Tarmukin. Darman hesitated for a moment and then slipped outside. Janart rounded on Etain. Listen to me, girl, she whispered. All harsh sibilants. Droplets of fine saliva glistened briefly in the dim light. That soldier may think a Jedi's every word is a divine pronouncement, but I don't. You better sharpen up fast. The Commandos and I are all that stands between maintaining some kind of order in this galaxy and its fragmentation, because if that clone army can be wiped out, then the Separatists will win. You can either help us or stand aside, but you will not be an obstacle. And that's what you are if you can't lead those men. They've been bred to obey Jedi without question. Sadly, in this case, that means you. Etain was used to feeling worthless. There was no lower place that Janart could cast her. I didn't ask for this responsibility. And neither did Darman. Janart flashed back into a mass of seething black sinews for a terrifying second. That's the nature of duty. It calls you, and you give it your all. He will. So will his comrades, every single one of them. They need you to help them do their job. I'm still learning how. Then learn fast. If those soldiers weren't conditioned to obey you, I consider cutting you down now and have done with it. My kind have nothing to thank the Jedi for, nothing at all. But we share a common enemy, and I want to see Valquil again. Think yourself lucky. Janart swept out. Etain sank down on her knees in the hay and wondered how she had come to this. The barn door cracked open slowly, and Darman peered around. Don't mind me, she said. You okay, ma'am? He winced visibly. Apologies. Etain. You probably think I'm useless as well, don't you? I came up with the plan, as you ordered. Bradford diplomacy, too, eh? If Hokan has set the facility as a decoy, then we need him to think that we still believe it's the genuine target. So we split. I'll take that as a yes. Darman lapsed into silence. I'm sorry, she said. Carry on. He knelt down facing her and swept the floor clear with his hand, creating a space clear on which to demonstrate something. He reached for the crust of bread and a lump of insect-eaten wood. What do you think I am? He asked quietly. From what Janart says, a clone soldier born and bred to obey. She watched him break the wood and crust into separate chunks and place them in a row like game pieces. No choice. But I do have a choice, he said. A choice in how I interpret your orders. I'm intelligent. I've seen Jedi fight, so I know what you're capable of. Once you're exposed to situations that call on your skills, you'll be the same. He was all contradictions. She wondered for a moment if he wasn't a clone soldier at all, but another Gerlanen playing spiteful games with her. But she could feel a combination of quiet desperation and faith. Yes, faith. He was the only person in many years who had shown her any degree of confidence in her. and the first since Master Foulier had shown her real kindness. Very well, she said. This is your overriding order. Whatever happens, you are not to intervene if anything I do or say compromises your mission. No, don't look at me like that. She held up her hand to stifle the protests she could see forming on his lips. Think of me as your commander in training. You must train me. That might mean showing me the correct way to do things, or even saving me from my own lack of experience. She could hardly bring herself to say it. And that's an order. He almost smiled. This is why I have confidence in obeying a Jedi commander. Your wisdom is unequaled. Etain had to think about that for a few seconds. If Janart had said it, she would have seethed. Darman meant it, and perhaps he meant it in a number of ways. Yes, he was intelligent and subtle, not a droid at all. How did a 10-year-old get that way? Disturbed, she concentrated on the comfort of believing that he had seen things that she never had, and so knew best. Go on, she said. You had a plan? RV Gamma, laying up point. Nightfall. How do you feel now? Niner asked. Etain moved his arms, bent at the elbow in a swimming motion, testing his pectoral muscles. Nearly good as new. No breathing problems either. No, just a hard smack to the plate. Phi's disembodied voice spoke up in the helmet comlinks. He was tucked under a bush on the edge of the ridge, keeping watch on the track below. I'm a good field medic. Wait till you see me do a tracheotomy. I'll pass, if that's all right with you, Etain said, easing off his helmet. Dinner? What do you prefer? Niner asked. Dry rats? Or maybe dry rats. Let's go with the dry rats for a change. Yes, Etain was definitely feeling better, and not just physically. Who used to say that, then? The dry rats thing. Oh, Scarata, our old instructor sergeant. Etain took a bite out of the white cube and washed it down with a gulp of water from his bottle. He never trained us. Heard a lot about him. Trained Phi and Darman, too. Our squads were all in the same battalion. We had Wallen Vu. That explains where you get your cheery outlook. Sergeant Vo taught us the importance of planning for the worst scenario, Etain said. All loyalty. In maximizing your tech. Being hard is good. Being hard with superior tech is better. I'll bet. I've heard everyone loves Scarata, though, even if he was a bad-tempered drunk. Niner had never been drunk, and he didn't know what alcohol tasted like. He cared what happened to us. He was one of us, pretty much. Not just because he couldn't cope with not being in the army anymore, or had to disappear, no. He was a good man. Niner would have given a great deal to have seen Scarata come limping through the trees right then, demanding to know what they were doing, lounging around like a bunch of Kaminoan Narha artists. No idea where he is now, not since we left Camino. Best covert ops and sabotage man ever. You'd know, of course. We'll all know soon. I'm relying on what he taught us to get the mission completed. Niner ate the perfectly balanced, sensibly designed, and utterly tasteless cube, and sat silently, still waiting for Darman. They couldn't even trap something and cook it. The smell of roasting meat and the light of a fire would betray their position. With Phi on watch, he could shut his eyes and sleep for a couple hours. He put his helmet back on, partly to be ready to move fast if they had enemy contact, and partly to keep the temperature up in his suit. It was getting chilly. He allowed himself one comfort that he didn't really need, for morale. You scare me. You just absorb everything I tell you. Don't you ever forget? No, Sarge, Niner said. He had no idea how long he'd been asleep. He woke up with a start at the sound of Fi's voice. Possible contact. Due east. Range 40 clicks. Looks like it's centered on Imbrani. Even through the visor, it wasn't clear exactly what Fi had spotted, but Niner could see it now too. A glow marked the horizon like a false sunrise. It was constant. The gentlest graduation from amber to deep red. It wasn't an explosion. Niner switched between visor modes, main spectrum to infrared to full spectrum, and then back again. The glow was hot, too. The infrared long range picked it up. I reckon that's one big fire coming, Fi said. They waited, watching. Niner could hear Etain a few meters away, pulling up the equipment and assembling it, ready to pull out. With the binocs on full distance, they could see that the fire was being eclipsed in places by billows of smoke. Eventually, Etain joined them, and the three observed the distant blaze in silence. They're not burning crop stubble at night, Fi said. They haven't even finished harvesting that stinking bark stuff yet. They found something. I know. Either they found Darman, and they're teaching the locals not to shelter the enemy, or they haven't found Darman and they're trying to flush him out. Niner thought it was relatively good news, but it means that he made the landing, he said. So we wait here, right up to the last second, and maybe a little longer, just to be sure. Etain laid the kits down again. He was too professional and disciplined to slam them on the ground, but Etain picked up on the slight sag of his shoulders. And if he doesn't show up by then? He asked, with a level tone of suggestion that suggested he didn't want to show dissent any longer. Next plan? We take another look at the whole area from Teklit to Imbrani, Niner said. We start from scratch. This isn't to scale, Darman said. He scraped marks into the loose soil on the exposed dirt floor of the barn and placed pieces of stale bread carefully on the crude chart. This is the river. These three crusts are RVs Alpha, Beta, and Gamma. He snapped the wood into more pieces and placed them. This is the droid base. And this is Uthan's lab. Etain held out her cupped hand. He dropped 2 chunks of wood into it. This is Lick and Keats' residence, he said. He's the Nemodian overlord. For want of a better word, he runs the agricultural produce export business, and that near enough makes him an emperor here. Okay. What else we got? Etain crumbled her remaining lump of wood into smaller pieces and scattered them carefully into patches. Imbrani itself in Teklit, which is the spaceport and its storage distribution depot. And this is the last known position of my squad. Etain stared at the worm-eaten wood and moldy crust that might help them save the Grand Army from destruction. Why are we scraping maps into the dirt when we've got perfectly good holo charts? That's what Sergeant Scarata used to do, Darman said. He didn't like holos, too transparent. He also thought feeling the texture of the dirt focused your mind. And you don't need any technology to do it. He was a great believer in intuition. Darman drew his blaster and turned suddenly. The barn door opened. He relaxed and dropped his arm to his side. Janart held more drab fabric bundled in her arms. You have to go, she said breathlessly. Take a look out to the east. They're burning the fields to flush you and deny you cover. There's somewhere you can lie low, but you have to pass 4 farmers. That's not going to be easy for you, lad. You're too big, well fed. Etain didn't rise to the bait. She knew she'd fit in fine with the undernourished, shabby locals. I have to take my kit, Darman said. I can lay up somewhere with it if I have to. Can you leave any of it? No, if we're going to blow up that facility, I've got all the implosion ordnance to deal with the nanovirus as well as the E-web cannon. We need it. Then take the cart. There's a curfew on powered vehicles. Jannart tossed one of the bundles at Darman. And get out of that armor. You couldn't be more conspicuous if you were wearing a wedding gown. We can try to move to RV Gamma. No. Go to the first safe house you can find. I'll reach your squad and let them know. Then I'll return to you. There was an assortment of barrows and handcarts stored in the barn, all in various states of disrepair. They'd attract no attention. The network of dirt roads was well traveled by people trying to get their quota of bark and other crops to Teklit on foot, or with mere Merly carts. Loading the sections of the blaster cannon on the sturdiest barrow they could find made Etain realize just how heavy a burden Darman had carried. When she tried to heave one of the gray packs into the cart, it nearly wrenched her shoulder from the socket, so she decided to enlist a little assistance from the force. She hadn't expected it to be so heavy. She wasn't the only one with deceptive physical strength. This is all the weapons? She asked. Pretty much. Not enough to take 100 droids, though. Depends on how you use it, Darman said. Etain wondered if he looked more conspicuous out of his sinister gray armor than in it. The armor had made him look much bigger, but even without it, he was so solidly built that it was obvious that he'd spent all his life training for strength, eating adequate protein. Subsistence farmers didn't have that distinctive slope from the neck to the shoulder formed by the overdeveloped trapezius muscles. Even the youngsters bore the marks of constant exposure to the elements. Darman simply looked strikingly healthy and unburned by the sun. He didn't even have calloused hands. And then there was that ramrod parade ground posture. He looked exactly like an elite soldier he was. He would never pass for a local. Etain hoped the farmers would be more terrified of him than they were of Hokan. The night horizon was amber, like the urban skies of Coruscant, but it was flame, not the light of a million lamps, that caused the reflection from the clouds. It looked like rain might follow. They could cover the cart with tarpaulin and not cause any curiosity. Layers of bark stalks, sacks of bark grain, and strips of dried kashian buried Darman's kit, as he kept calling it. His language swung from slang and generality to highly educated subtlety. From kit, his catch-all noun for any artifact, to DC-17s and DC-15s, and the whole slew of numbers and acronyms that left Etain befuddled. Look at that, Darman said, assessing the skyline. That flame front must be 4 clicks at least. That's 1 million or more credits worth of bark going up in smoke. The farmers are going to be furious. The Nemodians are going to be even angrier. So will Baron, Jannart said. That's a fair whack of his bark they're using for your camouflage, girl. Get along. The Gurlanin took Darman's datapad and inserted a mem stick. These are the relatively safe homes I could chart. Don't advertise your identity, either of you. Even if the master of the house you call on knows who you are, do him a favor, not compromising him by admitting it. Etain had covered her distinctive Jedi coat with an embrawny ankle-length tunic. Jannart indicated her hair. And that, she said too. The braid too? Unless you want to advertise what you are. Etain hesitated. She had once heard someone say they could never remove their betrothal ring, not until they died. Her Padawan's braid felt equally permanent, as if her soul was woven in with it, and removing it after so long, even temporarily, would rend the fabric of the universe and underscore her belief that she was not Jedi material. But it had to be done. She unfastened the single thin braid and combed the strands of wavy hair loose with her fingers. She felt less like a Jedi than ever, and not even remotely close to a commander. I imagine you never thought a Jedi commander would run away from a fight, she said to Darman as they made their carefully unhurried way up the track. Not running away, Darman said. This is E&E. Escape and evasion. Sounds like running to me. Tactical withdrawal to regroup. You're a very positive man. The child was almost completely absent now. She could mainly sense focus and purpose. He shamed her without intention. I'm sorry that I lost my composure earlier. Only in private, not under fire, Commander. I said not to call me that. Where we can be overheard, I'll obey your order. He paused. Everyone loses it now and then. I'm not supposed to. If you don't crack sometimes, how do you know how far you can go? It was a good point. For some reason, he was far more reassuring than Master Foulier had been. Foulier, when not getting caught up in putting the galaxy right, was all effortless brilliance. Darman was expert at this craft too, but there was a sense of hard-won skill, and there was no randomness or mystery to that. She liked him for being so pragmatic. It crossed her mind that she might be saving clone soldiers from death by biological agents so that they could die from blaster or cannon round. It was a horrible thought. She didn't like having to kill, not even by another's actions. It was going to make life as a commander exceptionally hard. The droids advanced along the edge of the wood with flamethrowers borrowed from the same farmer whose fields they were burning. Gez Hokan and his lieutenants, Cuven and Harati, stood in the path of the blaze, staring back at it from 300 meters. We're going to have to burn a great deal of land to deny all cover to the enemy, sir, Cuven said. That isn't the point, Harati said. This is as much to create the impression of protecting the facility as it is to flush out troops. Correct, Hokan said. There's no point in alienating the natives, and I can't afford to compensate them all for lost production. This is sufficient. We use droids on the remaining boundaries. Cuven seemed undeterred. May I suggest we use hunting strills? We could bring in a pack with their handlers in 2 days. The Trade Federation won't welcome the disruption to the bark harvest, and the shortage of the delicacy will be noticed by some very influential people. I don't care, Hokan said. The same influential people will be even more inconvenienced by the arrival of millions of Republic clones on their home worlds. Hokan was in full Mandalorian battle armor now, not so much for protection as to convey a message to his officers. Sometimes he had to indulge in a little theater. He knew that the glow of the flames illuminating his traditional warrior's armor made a fine spectacle, calculated to impress and overawe. He was at war. He didn't have to prostitute his martial skills as an assassin or bodyguard for a weak and wealthy cowards any longer. Cuven was right about the strills, though. It didn't mean he wouldn't have to deal with dissent, but finding the Republic troops wouldn't be easy. How many do you estimate now, Harati? He asked. Harati flicked a hollow chart into life, and a fly-through message shimmered in the dark. Vessel downed here. Confirmed Republic R5 military droid. He pointed. Remains of 2 Weequay militia found here, here, and here. But Dans had dismembered and dragged their cadavers over 5 clicks range. So the exact location of the kill is estimated. The airspeeder was brought down here. The speeder circuitry was found dismantled here. But as it was at the entrance to the Dan Burrows, there's no telling where where they might have found it to start with. The engagement with the droid patrol was here, because we deployed the patrol based on that finding. That's pretty much all in a 5-click corridor spanning 40 clicks. Looks obvious to me that they're heading for Teklet, probably to make a port before targeting the facility. It would look that way, sir. Numbers? I would have said no more than 10, sir. We have reports from farmers that they found evidence of movement across their land. They're very protective of the crops, so they notice subtle signs, unlike droids, sir. And what does that suggest, then? Multiple tracks, crossing an area 40 clicks by 30 clicks, sir. Expertly done, too. The locals thought it might have been wildlife, but these tracks are not random. I'd say that we're being decoyed. 10 troops, 10 pathfinders, special forces, saboteurs. Were they preparing for ground for more troops, or were they tasked to complete a mission on their own? Hokan wished he had a few Mandalorian mercenaries, not droids and career officers. He kept his concern well hidden with his full face helmet. He also wished he had more airspeeders. He had never needed more than one to police farms, and it would take days to have any ship from Kilara to Kilara. Farmers can be pretty cooperative, can't they? Remarkably so. Ever since that one found the circuitry, sir. Hokan turned and started walking back toward the research facility. That was now empty, but lavishly and conspicuously guarded. He beckoned Haradi to follow him. Cuban started to follow too, but Hokan held up his hand to motion him to stay put. Lieutenant, he said quietly. Any sign of former employee Goudanet? Not yet, sir. Patrols have been briefed. Good. And keep an eye on Cuban for me, won't you? I don't think he's going to make captain. Haradi paused, but briefly. Understood, sir. It was amazing what the unspoken promise of an extra rank insignia could do. Hokan wondered what happened to the code of conduct. So, there are perhaps 10 commandos operating in the region. Hunting them down would be enormously time-consuming. Barring luck, Hokan would never catch them. Not with droids. And these young academy theorists, sooner or later, the enemy would need to resupply. Sooner or later, they would show themselves. The Republic was playing decoy games with him and he with them. It was looking better all the time. They didn't appear to be adopting their usual tactic of landing infantry in force. It was a game of wits. And if the need arose, he could sit tight and force the Republic to come to him. If he wanted to bring Republic close enough to shoot, then he might need even more compelling bait. Dr. Etain would understand. She was a pragmatic woman. Phi was getting edgy. It wasn't like him. Niner had only known him a matter of days. But you make quick judgments on small details if you were a clone commando, especially among your own. He didn't sleep when Niner relieved him on watch, and after 15 minutes, Phi came forward to the observation position and settled down beside him. The fire seemed to have stopped. The glow was still visible, but it was static. It had probably reached one of the streams and was burning itself out. They know we're here anyway, Phi said. Niner needed no telepathy to know he was worrying about Darman. We could try to find the comlink at longer range. They'd get a fix on our positions. They'd have to get lucky. And we only have to be unlucky once. Okay. Sorry, Sarge. He lapsed back into silence. Niner adjusted his infrared filter to remove distracting light of the fire. Suddenly, it was abnormally silent, and that meant the Dans had stopped their incessant prowling, which was not good. Niner looked down the scope, one-handed, to get a narrower focus on the bushes in front of him. He panned across 180 degrees. He caught sight of little paired reflections. The alert eyes of Dan's huddled in uncharacteristic stillness to avoid something. Movement. His scope flashed blue in one quadrant, warning him. Maybe whatever it was could see infrared. He killed the target, switching to image intensification in the mark. 1. Eeroli, Escarada called it. You got eyes and ears, son. Good ones. Don't rely on the tech too much. Something was coming. Something slow, stealthy, smaller than a man, more sly than a droid. Niner put his hand on Fi's shoulder. Stay down. Not daring to speak even on comlink. It was 10 meters away, coming straight to them, making no attempt to stalk. Maybe he didn't know what they were. It was going to get a surprise then. Niner clicked on his tactical spot lamp and blinding beam caught a shining black shape. He cut the beam immediately, muscles relaxing. The creature was so flat to the ground now that it looked as if it were flowing water. It was only when it was right in front of them that it sat up and became Valakil. I thought I'd let you see me coming, given your armaments, said the voice that wasn't Valakil's, but equally liquid and hypnotic. I make it a rule never to startle a humanoid with a rifle. Just as well as we've never seen a Gurlanin before, Fi said, and touched his glove to his helmet politely. I didn't seem to surprise your colleague either. I've come to brief you. I'm Janart. Please don't call me ma'am every 2 seconds like Darman does. Niner wanted to ask 100 questions about Darman, but the Gurlanin had used the present tense, and so he was alive. Niner was glad he had his helmet in place. Displays of emotion weren't professional, not to outsiders anyway. You're heading for the wrong target, Janart said. You're on course for the Separatist base. Normally, you'd be knocking on the door of the barracks with 100 droids inside. But they've moved half of them to defend a research facility and patrol the area. Neither Uthon nor her nanovirus is at the actual facility any longer. So, it's all going just great, Fi said cheerfully. Your targets are at a villa just inside Imbrani. Despite what evidence you might see of the facility being defended, it's a trap. What's Darman doing? Niner asked. He has your special ordnance and detailed plans of your targets. I sent him into hiding with the Jedi. General Foulier. You thought right. He's dead. The Jedi is his Padawan, Tar Mukin. Don't get your hopes up. She isn't commander material. Not yet. Perhaps never. For the time being, this is still your war. We weren't planning on a frontal assault, not without infantry, Niner said. Now that we lost the advantage of surprise, we're going to have to get it back again. You do have one element. Gez Hokan has no accurate idea how few of you there are. I made sure there are many obvious signs of movements through the woods and fields. You've been busy. I can do a good impersonation of a small army, or at least its movement. Janart glanced at Etain and Fi, as if checking them. Maybe she was working out how she'd mimic the form of a commando. Not thinking of shooting and eating any Merleys, are you? Why? That armor isn't looking such a tight fit on you as it should. Fi nodded. She's right, expending about 30 more calories than planned, Sarge. They didn't calculate for us carrying kits over land. You'll exhaust your ration soon, Janart said. Merleys are delicious. Just never shoot one, please. If necessary, I could hunt them and leave them for you. Why? The one you shoot might be me. It was one more angle they hadn't covered on exercises. Not even Cal Scarada had dealt with Gurlanins. It seemed as if he hadn't mentioned it. Niner liked them. He wondered what world they came from. It was bound to be a fascinating one. Where will you head now? Janart asked. I need to let Darman know where you are. I'd have said RV Gamma, but that's going the wrong way, from what you've told us. I can give you the location of a suitable area nearer Imbrani. When I return to Darman, I'll give him the same coordinates. Atten cut in. They mine gems here, right? Zeka quartz and various green silicates, mainly, yes? Picks and shovels or mechanized? Mechanized. They'll have explosives for blasting then, and remote detonators with nice, safe, long-range settings. Gerlanus chuckled just like a human. She might have been amused. On the other hand, she might have been thinking Atten was a madman. But Niner liked the direction that Atten's inventive mind was taking. Get your holo charts, Jannart said. Let me give you a virtual guide to the gem industry of the Imbrani region. That is the end of Chapter 9. Please join me on Chapter 10 next time on Sleep Reads with Ben. Thank you.